My name is Josh Parcassini. My role at the church is I'm one of the leaders of a young married ministry, and I've been at the church about 13 years. Before the problem came, it was a pretty active church. We were growing. There were quite a few new families coming. It kind of started to get, I think, more superficial as time went on, while the problem was kind of below the surface. Started to be some people that had been here a while started leaving as new people were coming in. It was things that were just a little different. With the problem, again, I think our growth kind of stagnated. I mean, on the one hand, we were trying to do a building project, so we're still kind of trying to do the same things and acting like we were going to be growing. It was confusing because the problem was beneath the surface, and people didn't know about it. Some people suspected things, whereas others didn't. There's just a wide range of things going on. As far as how the church handled the problem, it was very much behind closed doors. The elders, once they found out about it, there were several people in the congregation that I know of that suggested that there might be a problem. They weren't sure at the time, but there were some things that the pastor was doing that they were uncomfortable with and felt might be a problem. And my understanding is that even once the elders did find out about the problem, they tried to deal with it more on a one-on-one basis without bringing it to the congregation until it was really too late and everyone already knew about it effectively. Trying to work on it on their own did make things worse because there was almost like factions. There were people who had brought things up who were sort of being marginalized and didn't feel as though they were being heard, and a lot of them left and went somewhere else because they weren't exactly sure that there was a problem, but they knew that the way they were being handled wasn't correct and wasn't helpful. Some of the reasons why we didn't go outside of the church or why the leadership didn't bring it to the body before is that really the elders board had kind of been selected by the pastor, and there weren't a lot of really strong personalities on the board. They were there as kind of a support group for the pastor, but he was really making the decisions. And even the people who were selected, I think, were selected on the basis of how well they would get along and follow his agenda, which exacerbated the problem because there was no real accountability there. It was kind of like he was a very charismatic person, kind of person that could talk his way out of a lot of things, even with mature Christians and strong people spiritually, but their personalities also weren't extremely strong. They were more passive types, shepherd types versus more confrontational type of leaders. Once things did come up, I mean, we were in a position where we only had one pastor, so people were kind of exiting in droves, and everyone was pretty hurt because he was very well liked. The pastor was very well liked. Even after the issues came out, people had a hard time believing it. So we really were in a position where we didn't have any real leadership in the church. No one really knew how to lead, or very few people. And even the ones who did, they had tried to go to the leadership and lead in that way and had been rejected. So there was a lot of recovery that really needed to take place. Once we realized that we needed some outside help, we heard about a ministry called Metanoia. The elders brought it before the congregation. We took a vote to have them come in and do a church assessment to see where we were at in terms of dealing with that conflict. Part of the assessment team was the person who eventually became our interim pastor, Dave Brooks, who was with CRM, and that was one of the recommendations of the assessment, was that we bring in an intentional interim pastor to help us through the transition, help us figure out how to resolve conflicts within the church, and how to really lead the church, kind of apart from the pastor, who had been effectively the sole leader of the church, and a big part of his fall, we learned through the intentional interim process, was the lack of accountability that he had from other leaders in the church. When CRM first came in, there really wasn't much resistance at that point to having somebody in. The resistance really came beforehand with having someone come in to do an assessment and that sort of thing. But once we went through the assessment process and found out how unhealthy we were, it was virtually unanimous that we needed to bring in somebody from the outside to help us out, and that was CRM. And having them in here was very helpful. Basically they helped us through Sunday school to educate the adult body on conflict resolution, and also through the messages on Sunday morning. A lot of the messages were just on repentance and conflict resolution, and really the issues that we were facing that we needed to resolve to get healthy as a church body. And it was kind of like a breath of fresh air to a lot of us who had kind of just been going through the motions, while the process was kind of bubbling under the surface, to really get back to the roots of the Bible and what it teaches about how to lead effectively and how to support one another as a body. CRM helped us for a period a little over a year, somewhere between a year and a half. I would say that it probably took a little bit less time than that, but they stayed on to help us kind of bridge the gap while we were looking for a full-time pastor. Through the process of having the interim in after the collapse of the church, we were at one point down to where I think the last ministry to stop was youth group. We didn't even have a youth group at one point. There were just no ministries in the church whatsoever. It was just Sunday morning, just going to church and Sunday school. Even childcare in the nursery we weren't doing. People just couldn't serve through the process. Everyone was just hurting so badly. And the process with CRM really built us back up to a point where people could go back into ministry. People were resolved over what had happened, and we could move forward as a church. And now we're growing again. We became a much healthier body. We were capable of having a senior pastor come in and really effectively lead us. The elders were much better trained. We added some new leaders to the elders board. It's really pretty amazing what's happened in the church. Again, I said we went from a point where we had no ministries whatsoever to several different ministries, one of which I'm a part of, a lot of them geared towards younger people. The youth group is doing extremely well, has its own youth pastor. We have a children's program that is not just on Sunday mornings, but there's also a night during the week where the children are being ministered to. We have more and more kids being brought into the church every week, it seems like. There's got to be over 100. There was one point when we actually thought about leaving the church. 5 or 10 years from now, I hope that that our ministry has expanded kind of beyond, one location, one building. I see us hopefully planting more churches in the area so that we can reach a larger geographic area, reach more people. I hope we're doing a lot internationally, organizing mission trips and things like that can really get people out and serving, and that we're continuing to just reach broken people. The kinds of conflicts that CRM helps churches deal with, I think they're probably in every church to some extent. Ours was a very dramatic example. It was easy to see. We knew by the time everything fell apart that we needed help, but I think that there's a lot of churches out there that could benefit just from learning how to resolve conflict more effectively, because it really unifies the body and helps you move towards just a bigger vision for God.